Will the old guard defend the established Big Ten? Welcome into the Voice of College Football for the best in discussion, debate, and analysis. We've arrived at our final Power Conference and our summer edition of Power Rankings. We've arrived at the Big Ten. Please check out the SEC, the Big 12, and the ACC. And the intrigue here, whether you like conference realignment or not, the demise of the Pac-12 hurts me as well as most college football purists. But gotta say that these matchups are intriguing, especially in this conference. Let's get to the bottom of the conference, though. Number 18, and when you put them all together, no more divisions. You're going to have an 18th place team in the Big Ten. You don't want to be that team. You don't want to be that coach. Ryan Walters, it could be you. Purdue, 18 transfer additions, 29 losses, and they lost their two best offensive players, Deion Burks and TJ Sheffield. They accounted for 79 catches and 9 touchdowns, and also their best defensive player, Nick Scorton. Add one Georgia cornerback in Nyland Green. He's a nice addition, but Purdue, definitely more subtractions than gains off a 4-8 football team. At number 18 in the Big Ten, boiler up. I probably used the same line for the spring edition of our Power Rankings in the Big Ten, introducing Indiana. But I just got to go back to it. Curt Cignetti, new head coach coming in from James Madison, takes the mic at an Indiana basketball game after he was introduced as football coach to say, Purdue sucks, and not only does Purdue suck, Indiana's level, their rivalry game, the old Oak and Bucket, but Michigan sucks and Ohio State sucks. All right, Kurt, it's up to you to back it up now. 31 transfers in, 39 losses. Curtis Rourke in from the MAC and the Ohio Bobcats, where he was a capable starting quarterback. They lose their top playmaker in Jalen Lucas. He goes to Florida State. CJ West, the top defensive line transfer portal addition during the spring from Kent State, chose Indiana as they were able to outbid, most likely, a lot of higher echelon college football programs. At number 17, it's going to take a whole lot more than CJ West. At number 17, IU. It's more even obvious now. 2022 was a missed opportunity for Bret Bielema and Illinois. On the surface, 8-5 doesn't look spectacular, but number one, the recent history of this program, 8-5 is something special, and considering what Bret Bielema inherited from Lovie Smith, on top of that, they were so much better than 8-5. They were the best team in the West. Now here we are 2 years later. That was a number one defense in college football that unloaded on the NFL draft, and the last two from that defense, Johnny Newton, one of the best players in college football, regardless of position, he's gone to the NFL draft. Keith Randolph gone as well. A nice sledge is a nice pickup from Auburn, where he was a top recruit, but he has yet to prove anything at the college level. He's got to be a force along the defensive front. Terrence Brooks is a nice pickup at the corner position from Texas. He was a starter for a Big 12 championship team that went to the college football semifinal. 12 additions on the transfer portal, 23 loss. We talked about the defense. The defense has to get better after taking a tumble in 2023. Luke Altmaier's got to get better at quarterback, 1,800 yards, 13 touchdowns. He could be pushed in August camp by Donovan Leary. Illinois lost its best running back, at least in terms of production, in Reggie Love to Purdue. They lost their best wide receiver and playmaker, Isaiah Williams, to the NFL draft. The offensive line, though, this is where it starts. It's got to be Altmaier making the right decisions, using his 4-star arm talent. And the offensive line is experienced, and it's really good. Overall, Illinois is not in a great place. The recruiting has not been good, and the talent has certainly declined since that big 2022. Bret Bielema might be the best coach in college football with a dead-end program. At number 16 in the Big Ten, Fighting Illini. 2024 could be the crossroads at Minnesota for P.J. Fleck. Back-to-back 9-4 seasons, followed by 6-7, and Minnesota was very close to having a much worse record than that. Of course, just 5 wins in the regular season, as P.J. Fleck is, give it up for him, undefeated in postseason play at 6-0. He loses his defensive coordinator, Joe Rossi, who was so good, but not so much this past season. A top 10 defense fell to number 56, and they lose their best player, Tyler Nubin, as well. On the offensive side, Quarterback is the big change, of course. Ethan Kalkumanis goes to Rutgers. Bring in Max Brosmer from New Hampshire. This is considered to be an upgrade. Kalkumanis was a low 50 percentile passer in the Big Ten. Brosmer's arguably the best quarterback in FCS, tore it up at New Hampshire. He's got one of the best running back situations. They always just bring him off the bench at Minnesota. Sometimes they've had to go 5 deep at running back. These guys just continue to rip off 140-yard games. Darius Taylor, though, is number one. He led the Big Ten in rushing in the months of October and November behind a really good offensive line. Most of those guys back. Daniel Jackson is a true number one receiver, but they have few supporting players around him. Minnesota right now, make or break, more difficult schedule, of course, in the Big Ten, number 15 in our power rankings. We rated coaches just on their team's performances versus the talent on the roster, and especially considering the situation in 2023, David Braun would be considered the best coach in college football. Did the best job of anyone, taking that team, that situation, to 8-5 in a bowl win against Utah, who is the Big 12 favorite. Remarkable. And David Braun returned his entire staff. He retained his entire staff. That just doesn't happen. On top of that, the returning production is top 5 in the nation, including Cam Porter, the running back. But still, Vegas doesn't believe in David Braun and the Wildcats. They've got him at about 5 wins after 8-5 and accomplishing all of that. And usually a second season for a coach is where he's got his process in place, his system in place, terminology, everything, built relationships. And there's not turnover at Northwestern. They don't go to the portal. 5 players picked up. They only lost 12. They do have a quarterback situation to take care of. Mike Wright, probably a downgrade from what they had with Ben Bryant, the Cincinnati transfer, who turned in 2 nice seasons, and also Brendan Sullivan, who filled in capably as a part-time starter. 69% completion percentage in 200 throws in the Big Ten is top-notch. Our number 14 team in the Big Ten. I'm intrigued to see if it can continue. Northwestern. The big story at UCLA, of course, is that Chip Kelly is no longer the head coach. He was the star. He was the face of the program. Of course, he did a great job in earning an NFL head coaching gig after what he did at Oregon. But is that truly, in 2024, a big loss? Not necessarily. Chip Kelly had lost his fastball, certainly by resigning, leaving UCLA to go to an offensive coordinator position at Ohio State. He showed that he no longer cared for college football and what it had become. So get that guy out of the way. You need a young guy that's on fire, and that guy loves the program. He's tied to it. He's one of the greats of all time, Deshaun Foster. Great NFL career. He's been around the program as a coach, and he's been one of the reasons why UCLA has led the Pac-12 in rushing the last 2 years. So we talk about the transition from the Pac-12 for these teams on the West Coast to the Big Ten. Well, for UCLA, they run the ball anyway. They are a Big Ten team. They just look pretty in the powder blue. So they've got a quarterback in Ethan Garbers who's mid. But they've got a new offensive coordinator, one of the best in the NFL, Eric Bieniemy. He'll coach up Ethan Garbers, play to his strengths. The defense was phenomenal last year, the most improved in college football at a high level. But D'Anton Lynn, the defensive coordinator responsible, has left to go to crosstown rival USC. So Kaika Malo takes over the defense. He was the line coach last year. Intriguing team here, number 13 in the Big Ten. Here at the Voice of College Football, UCLA. When you think solid, steady, hard-nosed football coach, you think Greg Schiano. Now Greg Schiano's been at Rutgers long enough and built his system to a point that you can say that about the Rutgers football team. Offense, defense, special teams, the whole deal. This is one solid program and our number 12 team in the Big Ten. Change at quarterback. They're going to throw it a little bit more. They're still going to rely on the run, but they have been run heavy. 8th nationally with a 62-38 run-pass ratio in 2023. But 8th in Kalkumanis can sling it downfield. Gavin Wimsatt, 47% passer, moves on to Kentucky, where he'll be the backup of Brock Vandegrift. But Kalkumanis, the big arm, but he's got to be more consistent. The wide receiver play at Rutgers should be better, even though they lost their best player, Chris Dremel, to the NFL. The The wide receiver recruiting's been better, but again, it goes back to the run game. The offensive line's really good. Kyle Monangai is the defending Big Ten rushing champion. The defense, top 10 to 30, just about across the board in most metrics and categories, and they got 6 senior starters back. Rutgers could make a move. They're number 12 in our Voice of College Football Big Ten Power Rankings. What David Braun pulled off at Northwestern last season, Jonathan Smith did in Corvallis, Oregon for a sustained period of time. Oregon State's been really good for a few years. Now he moves on to Michigan State. Michigan State has fell into a great situation. This is a coaching upgrade from Mel Tucker, to be sure, and a quarterback upgrade, even though Aiden Childs is inexperienced. Believe me, with Jonathan Smith coaching him, this is a good situation for Michigan State football. But it's going to take some time. They bring in 24 through the transfer portal. They lose 38. Derek Harmon, Simeon Barrow along the defensive front. Those are big, big losses. They bring in the Illinois defensive lineman. He's a good player, Dennis. But otherwise, Michigan State's going to take some time. But the program in a good position. We'll rank them number 11 in the Big Ten right now in our program rankings. Let's call Washington the TCU of 2024. Made the college football playoff last year. No way they're going to do it this year. Remarkable job by Kalen DeBoer. He moves on to Alabama. But they did a nice job of filling the role with another capable head coach. What Jed Fish did at Arizona, considering the shape of that program, that roster when he got to Tucson, remarkable job. Won a bowl game last year, went 10-3, finished near the top 10 in the country. But man, this is an unprecedented situation when you really look at across the board. New head coach, new coaching staff, new quarterback, 2 returning starters. That's probably happened before, but a new conference to boot. Will Rogers is one of the most experienced quarterbacks in college football, and if he turns in an average season for you stats nerds, he's going to be one of the most prolific quarterbacks in college football. Attempts, completions, yards, on down the line touchdowns, and they need those touchdowns at Washington because the defense won't be nearly as good. They lost just about everybody, including their all-everything cornerback, Jabbar Muhammad. Jonah Coleman's a nice pickup, coming with Jed Fish from Arizona as a 1,000-yard running back. At number 10 in our Big Ten rankings here at the Voice of College Football, the Huskies. I love what I do as a sports commentator. I have definitely been blessed. I enjoy my career. But I got to say, if I could turn back time, I would learn the business side of sports management, how to manage people, how to manage projects, how to manage situations. And then there's also those times in which you feel stuck in a job, stuck in a career, just feeling that there's a dead end and wondering and waiting, when is that break going to happen? Well, unfortunately, I got to tell you, that break is not coming unless you make it happen. Sports is your passion. You love it, you live it, you breathe it. Why not make your passion your career? Introducing Southern New Hampshire University, our sponsor. At SNHU, you will learn the business side of sports, sports management principles, and how to gather and analyze data. This degree will help you prepare for a career as an athletic director, sports information director, marketing manager, and other exciting roles in the sports industry. You'll be able to tap into SNHU's network of graduates working in sports-related organizations. You'll also have the opportunity to take advantage of an internship or an experiential learning course within the field. Your courses are taught by faculty with real-world experience, so you'll have opportunities to connect with people in the industry. And when you graduate, SNHU will be right there to help you with your job search. SNHU is accredited, nonprofit, and has radically affordable tuition. SNHU was voted one of the country's most innovative universities by U.S. News and World Report. Just go to snhu.edu/VOCFB. The link's also in my description section down below to see if you qualify for SNHU's sports management program. You might be eligible for financial aid or have existing college credits that could fast-track your degree at SNHU. Click the link to get started. Your exciting sports management degree at SNHU awaits you. Do it now. Mike Loxley's got himself a nice little program at Maryland. They've won 3 consecutive bowl games for the first time in program history. They went 8-5 this past season. But who's going to play the quarterback? Because let's not underestimate what Taulia Tagovailoa meant to Maryland football, not just since 2020 as the 4-year starting quarterback, but specifically in 23, he lifted this offense. He was pretty remarkable most of the time. The offense was on his shoulders. They only averaged 3.7 yards per carry. In college football, that's not good enough. Roman Hemby's a capable back who had a big 2022, but the offensive line let him down in 23, and they've got to be better because the quarterback position will not be anywhere close to what it was. Billy Edwards, MJ Morris, the transfer coming in from NC State, they're the two primary guys, although Loxley holds that there are 5 quarterbacks vying for this position. But again, I would be shocked if one of them that steps up and wins the job is going to be as good as Taulia Tagovailoa. They lose one of the best tight ends in the Big Ten, Corey Dyches, to Cal. He caught 49 balls last year, although the wide receiver room is loaded with talent. Taj Felton, Caden Prather in particular. On defense, they bring back a veteran front seven, and they picked up a really good cornerback, all-MAC performer from Bowling Green. At number 9 in our Big Ten power rankings, we've got the Terps. All the talks about Dylan Raiola, and it should be the former 5-star is the starting quarterback in Nebraska. No doubt about it. How many times has that happened? True freshman starter at a Big Ten school. Dylan Raiola's that talented. Is he that good? Well, he looked it in the spring game. And again, Matt Rule seems to have that confidence. But also, he's got a few options behind him, but not necessarily anything with great experience. Heinrich Harburg, of course, has made his way as a running quarterback and filled in the gap as a Nebraska starter in recent years. So they do have that. This Nebraska team brings in Jamal Banks at wide receiver from Wake Forest, and he may finally have a quarterback that he did not have this past season. Of course, he caught balls from Sam Hartman 2 years ago, but he's got over 100 catches in his career. He's a really good one. Isaiah Nair got lost at Texas, but before that, he was one of the best pass catchers in the Mountain West Conference at Wyoming. Thomas Fidone, tight end, 5-star recruit. And when the ball's thrown to him, again, Nebraska was so bad at the quarterback position, so deplorable trying to throw the football. This may really open it up because they've got playmakers available, especially in acquiring Banks and Nair. The defensive side with Tony White, he has gone on record to say, I want to have the number 1 defense in the country. That seems laughable, but they were number 11 last year. Huge improvement, and they've got just about everyone back. At number 8 in our Big Ten power rankings, GBR. Tyler Van Dyke looks the part at 6'4", 230, and in 2021, for 8 games, he looked the part on the field, throwing darts all over the place. 350 yards per game, 3 to 4 touchdowns against really good defenses, including front runners in the ACC, Pitt, who eventually won the championship, and NC State. But since then, he's imploded, he's faltered, he's declined. He's thrown the ball to the other guys way too much, but I believe that is partially due to poor coaching. He'll receive better instruction from Phil Longo at Wisconsin, but TVD may not necessarily be the starter. Braden Locke will put up a fight in August. We know that they won't have Braylon Allen to rely on. He's off to the NFL. Ches Malusi, a more than capable back, a star back, got to stay healthy. 6 yards per carry last year, but again, can't stay on the field. But Tyree Walker's a nice addition from Oklahoma. All the pub and the hype was given to guys like Javante Barnes and Gavin Sawchuk at Oklahoma and others, but it was Tyree Walker who carried it between the tackles and did a nice job. Wisconsin's offensive line, nothing close to what it's been in the past. We think Wisconsin, checkbox offensive line, one of the best in the country. Not last year. 23 sacks, 109 pressures. It's got to get better. The defense misses Jim Leonard, one of the great defensive coordinators in college football. No knock on Mike Tressel, but the defense was not up to Wisconsin standards. I don't know that it has much hope, despite a lot of transfer portal additions, especially at linebacker, to meet Wisconsin standards this season. Our Voice of College Football Big Ten Summer Power Rankings, Wisconsin at 7. Iowa's quarterback play has been horrendous since Nathan Stanley left campus in 2019. But exit 1, offensive coordinator Brian Ferentz, who could not develop quarterbacks. Enter Tim Lester, who did a remarkable job for the most part. there and had a year in the NFL. I think that the offensive approach is going to be what it needs to be. Now, the wide receiver play has been atrocious as well. Can it improve in one season? Because they have absolutely no one who has proven much of anything at the collegiate level. Back to quarterback, Cade McNamara, of course, has the accomplishment of a Big Ten championship, but he's been injured the last 2 years. Brendan Sullivan coming in as an added piece that is certainly key, whether it's as a starting quarterback out of the gate or as a capable backup after completing 69% of his throws in 200 attempts at Northwestern. The tight end position will be good. The running back room is strong, but will the offensive line give them holes to maneuver downfield? The defense will be stout. There's no question about that. We know that. The linebacking core in particular could be the best in college football. Jay Higgins had this stat blows me away, 171 tackles last year. Our 6th-ranked team in the Big Ten, in the new Big Ten. Will they be able to break into the elite? The offense, the special teams, and some hope with Tim Lester as the coordinator on offense. Number 6, Hawkeyes. We march on with our Voice of College Football summer edition of our power rankings in the Big Ten with another new entry to the conference, number 5. USC, Miller Moss is now the quarterback, and he was highly recruited coming out of high school. Of course, he's taking over for Superman, Caleb Williams. But because he's not going to play the role of Superman, look for the offense to deliver in a much different way. Miller Moss is going to take his 3-step drop. He's going to make the right read. He's going to deliver the football, take pressure off the offensive line. People are going to know, the line is going to know where Moss is all the time. He's going to be in the pocket. And the receivers are going to know that they run the routes and the ball is going to be delivered. If the bowl game, in which Miller Moss was spectacular, 6 touchdown passes and a zillion yards, is any indication, but we're riding on one bowl game. But more than that, we're riding on Lincoln Riley's ability to develop quarterbacks. Let's not forget all those Heisman Trophy winners and top 5 offenses at Oklahoma. Running back, receiver, loaded. We're focusing during these power rankings on additions and subtractions, so you know the guys that have been there at USC from last season. So let's look at the defense. D'Anton Lynn takes over the defense. I am not wowed by the transfers that have come in, although USC has certainly addressed the defensive front that was a weakness and got torn to shreds on the ground, and that was in the Pac-12 against weaker rushing attacks. D'Anton Lynn, again, he knows what he's doing. I don't know that they've got the personnel to be an elite defense, but that may not be necessary. This is a sleeper, folks. 5th-ranked team right now in our power rankings in the Big Ten, Voice of College Football, SC. Seems like College Football Nation has given up on one Drew Aller, the former 5-star who showed flashes in backing up Sean Clifford in 2022. Of course, it was his position in 23. And if you just look at the touchdown to pick ratio, it's sterling at 25-2. But if you watched the Ohio State and Michigan games, it was rough to watch. Now, he did not have the playmakers around him that other top quarterbacks in recent years in the Big Ten have, nor the offensive line play. He does have the 2 backs in the backfield that can deliver if they have some running room. So Katron Allen and Nick Singleton's production last year did not match what they did as freshmen, true freshmen. They exploded on the scene, took a step back in productivity last season. So it's up to the offensive line. And Penn State needs some playmakers. They lost Keandre Lambert-Smith, 53 catches. Don't necessarily consider that to be a huge loss, though. Julian Fleming is the guy that could make a difference for this offense. And then on the defensive side, Manny Diaz, defensive coordinator, off to take over the head coaching job at Duke. He's a major loss. Tom Allen knows what he's doing. Of course, he was the IU head coach, and defense is his calling card. But Manny Diaz did a remarkable job with this Penn State defense that was arguably the most athletic, if not the best in the country. It was right up there. They lost 4 more players to the NFL draft. So the defense may not be quite as good, so Drew Aller may have to win a few shootouts. Our number 4 team in the Big Ten, Penn State. Imagine just a couple of years ago saying that Michigan lost Jim Harbaugh, much of its coaching staff, 13 players to the NFL draft, a top 10 quarterback selection in J.J. McCarthy, and they may vie for a Big Ten championship and more. But this is where Jim Harbaugh has left the football program in Ann Arbor. Sharon Moore showed us something by coaching those final 3 games against 3 tough opponents and winning them all. Even though he did not lead the team during the week, Sharon Moore, I think that's a great measure of what he could be able to accomplish in the Mason Blue as the leader of this football program. J.J. McCarthy's gone. Which way do they go? Alex Orji, more runner than passer? Or Davis Moore and Jack Tuttle? Do one of them win the job more passer than runner, even though Davis Moore, better athlete than many people give him credit for? Donovan Edwards, nobody's going to in any way question his athleticism, but is he a one-game wonder every season? It seems like he shows up for 1 game, and then that's it. He was an enigma last season, but he finally got going in the college football playoffs. But Michigan has other options at running back despite losing one of the all-time greats in the program, Blake Corum. Jordan Marshall, of course, the incoming freshman. You also have Benjamin Hall and Cole Cabana at running back behind. We know that the offensive line is going to be fine. They did lose some talent, of course, Zach Zinter and others up front. The defense, despite losing all that they did, is still going to be one of the very best in the nation. Will Johnson, premier at his position. We could go on and on, Mason Graham and others. Michigan defending a Big Ten and national championship. Right now, I consider them a serious contender for the Big Ten championship. Number 3 in our Voice of College Football Big Ten Power Rankings. While USC, UCLA, and Washington are joining the Big Ten this fall, Oregon is looking to take over the Big Ten this fall. They were this close to a college football playoff performance, and yes, they lose Bo Nix at quarterback. He's got to be replaced by Dylan Gabriel. But Dylan Gabriel, we talked about Will Rogers earlier becoming one of the most prolific quarterbacks in the history of college football. Dylan Gabriel, with an average season, will set records this season. And considering that he's probably the best quarterback in the conference, Tez Johnson may be the best Big Ten wide receiver. Evan Stewart might be the best incoming wide receiver in the Big Ten. This might be the best offensive line in the Big Ten. They were 15-20 in just about every metric on defense last season. Yes, they suffered some losses on the defensive side, but they bring in Jabbar Muhammad, one of the best cornerbacks in the nation from Washington, and also Derek Harmon, a really good defensive lineman from Michigan State, and Jamari Caldwell, who had 8.5 tackles for loss and 6.5 sacks from Houston. And I didn't rank them number 1 in the Big Ten. They are loaded, and they are the Ducks. Let's set this straight. Georgia's got the best football program in the country. Michigan is the champion. Georgia's got the best program. Georgia has the best talent, 1 through 100. Waves and waves of talent all over the place. Depth. Best team, best personnel, best roster, 1 through 20. Ohio State Buckeyes. Look at the talent that they had last year. They came within 1 drive of being the number 1 seed in the playoff. And just about everybody came back. Sure, they lost the best wide receiver in college football and a few other guys. But just about everyone didn't like their draft position and came back. JT Tuimoloau and Emeka Buka and Jack Sawyer and others. And now, on top of that, Caleb Downs in from Alabama, one of the best safeties in the country. Seth McLaughlin, center at Alabama, starting center. He comes in. Quinshawn Judkins, one of the best running backs in the country. But let's get down to it. Even though, from a depth standpoint, they're great. I'm not saying that they're not good because I'm rating Georgia above them, but it's about the elite talent at the top of the lineup that Ohio State's just the best. However, it comes down to this. Offensive line play's got to be better. A lot of people claim that in watching the tape, Kyle McCord just missed throws. Didn't see them or just missed them. The offensive line did the job. They did protecting Kyle McCord, but they could not run the ball in key situations against Michigan. Outside of 1 drive in the third quarter, they couldn't get it done. And they didn't add anyone outside of McLaughlin. So the offensive line just has to improve. They have to develop the offensive line. And Will Howard, is he that good? Well, at Kansas State, I was pretty impressed with him. But translate Kansas State expectations to Ohio State, I don't know if he's the guy. But I do know 2 things. He should be better than Kyle McCord because of 2 reasons. Number 1, he's got experience. Let's consider poor Kyle McCord. had zero experience starting last season, while Will Howard's got 2.5 years in the Big 12. And he also is mobile. He can run. They're not going to be running him like JT Barrett, but he will be able to threaten a defense. This is the number one team in the Big Ten in terms of talent. Now, will they execute it? Will they white knuckle it in November? We don't know, but they're the best team in the Big Ten. They are Ohio State. That's the Big Ten Power Rankings right here at the Voice of College Football, our summer edition. Of course, we will make our predictions in August, and they're usually pretty damn close. So please check out the predictions that we will deliver here in August at the Voice of College Football, and especially our game predictions once we get to week 0. Our game predictions would have won you at $100 per pop last season, over $9,000. But we do not encourage you to gamble. It's for entertainment purposes only. It's just play money that if you would have kept track, over $9,000. All right, our Big Ten Power Rankings complete right here at the Voice of College Football. Please like and share the videos. Subscribe right here at the Voice of College Football. Why do you do that? That way you hit the bell for the notifications to know when we go live. Right here for the best in discussion, debate, and analysis at the Voice of College Football.